Imagine sitting down at a table at a restaurant in Spain. The waiter, el camarero, brings you your food, it smells amazing, and suddenly you want to say, wow, this is delicious. Or everyone raises their glasses. What do you do to say cheers in Spanish? Well, stick around, friends, because today we're teaching you the Spanish words and expressions you'll need at the table. Welcome to Spanglish Friends, the podcast for true beginner Spanish learners.
Hola amigos, I'm Val, your co-host and experienced Spanish teacher from Venezuela.
And I'm Em, your Australian co-host who's been learning Spanish for 10 years.
Our goal is simple, to get you confident listening and speaking in beginner Spanish with content you'll actually use in real-life conversations.
Join the Spanish Friends community by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts and following us on social media at Spanglish_friends. Let's get started.
Comencemos.
Muy buenos días, amigos. Bienvenidos de nuevo. Welcome back, Spanglish Friends.
Hola amigos, bienvenidos a nuestro episodio 25. Welcome to episode 25. Today is going to be super practical because once you know how to order food, which we learned how to last week in our episode 24, the next step is being able to talk about your meal, right? Describe it, enjoying those little social phrases that people use when eating together.
Exactly. And as always, we're going to frame today's lesson around our 3 key questions of the day. Are you ready? They are Pregunta número 1. How do you say the meals of the day in Spanish? Like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack time. Pregunta número 2. How do you describe food in Spanish? For example, this is tasty, it's delicious, it's spicy, or sweet. And finally, pregunta número 3. What are some common Spanish table talk expressions you can use whilst eating? For example, how do you say cheers when clinking glasses? Or how do you ask for the bill after a meal?
Those 3 questions are going to guide our lesson. And to bring this to life, we are going to have una conversación pequeña that uses all of this vocabulary in context so you can get a preview of what you are going to learn in this episode.
Sí. So today, let's imagine Val and I are sitting together, dining at a restaurant at night in Chile. This first time through, just listen out to see if you can recognize any familiar words. ¿Lista, Profe Val?
Sí, amiga. Comencemos.
¿Qué comes para la cena, Val?
Como una sopa de verduras. Está deliciosa. ¿Y tú?
Yo tengo tacos. Están picantes y muy ricos.
Buen provecho, Emi.
Gracias y salud.
¡Salud! Uf, estoy llena. La cuenta, por favor. Nice! So, you probably got some of those new words already, but don't worry if you didn't. We'll go paso a paso, step by step, and break down everything you need to know, Spanish friends.
And in 10 minutes, you're going to be able to understand that whole conversation in its entirety. Let's start the timer and vamos con la primera pregunta.
Vamos. Nuestra pregunta número 1. How do you say the meals of the day in Spanish?
We're talking breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack time. How do we say these, Profe Val?
Okay, amiga. Breakfast in Spanish, we say el desayuno. Desayuno. Lunch, we say almuerzo. El almuerzo. And the dinner, we say cena. La cena. And finally, if you want a snack at some point throughout the day, you can say la merienda, which means snack. This is something especially common in Spain and some countries in South America, where people might have a small snack, like a little pastry or a sandwich in the late afternoon.
Nice, Val. And friends, Spanish-speaking countries around the world have different words for merienda, for snacks. For example, in Chile, they have once, and this is a meal typically eaten around 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening, whilst dinner, la cena, is usually consumed later at night, after 8 p.m. Now, this certainly came as a cultural shock to me when I was traveling around the Latin American world for someone who was used to eating dinner at 6, 7 p.m. in Australia. Plus, sometimes lunchtimes, el almuerzo can be later than expected. Don't be surprised if lunchtime doesn't start until after 2 p.m.
This is very true. This is very true. A quick recap, Spanglish friends. We have desayuno, which means breakfast, almuerzo, which means lunch, cena, which means dinner, and merienda, which means snack.
Now, to ask someone what meal you are having or ask someone what they're eating, you can say, ¿Qué comes para? And then the meal of the day, like, ¿Qué comes para la cena? What are you eating for dinner? Comes comes from the to form, the conjugation you of the verb comer, which is the verb to eat in Spanish. What are you eating for dinner? ¿Qué comes para la cena? Or ¿Qué comes para el almuerzo, for example?
Exactamente. Nice. Entonces, aquí vamos con la pregunta número 2, our question number 2. How do you describe food in Spanish?
Everyone loves to describe their food, and here are 4 simple but powerful expressions you can use.
Absolutely. So let's go through all of them. We have the first, which is rico. Está rico, which means it's tasty or yummy. Second one, está delicioso, which means it's delicious. Number 3, we have está picante, which means it's spicy. Está picante. And last one, we have está dulce, which means it's sweet. Está dulce.
So basically what you need to do, Spanglish friends, is pick the food or beverage you're describing, add está, which means it is, and then the adjective, the describing word you want to use. For example, la sopa está rica. La sopa está rica. La sopa is soup in Spanish. So I can say the soup is delicious. Notice I said rica instead of rico here. Remember from our earlier episodes, the adjective always has to match the noun in gender. It would be incorrect to say, la sopa está rico, okay? I have to say rica.
100% good reminding, Emmy. And this is so important. That's why in many episodes we mentioned this many times because it's important to get it right. And let's make it interactive. Emmy, I'll describe a food in Spanish and you try to guess what food I'm describing.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay. If I'm saying that something está dulce, like está dulce, what do you think that food might be?
I'm thinking like a dessert, a postre, a dessert, maybe like un helado, an ice cream.
Sí, perfecto. That's great.
Way!
Helado está dulce. Perfecto. Now you can try one.
Okay, I'm thinking like Mexican, están muy picantes.
Están muy picantes. Maybe quizás unos tacos?
Yes, exactamente.
And Spanglish friends, you can play along. Try describing your own favorite food right now, even if it's just one word like rico, delicioso, picante, dulce. Just give it a try.
Nice. Cerramos con la tercera pregunta. We're finishing with the third question of the day, la tercera. What are some common Spanish table talk expressions that you can start using now whilst eating?
First up is estoy lleno or estoy llena, which means I'm full. Men would say estoy lleno, ending in O, and women would say estoy llena, ending in A.
That's right. I'm full. Lleno or llena. The next is buen provecho. Buen provecho. This is an awesome phrase to say before eating. It's like the Spanish version of buen appetit. Okay, enjoy your meal. Buen provecho.
Then we have salud.
Salud.
It means cheers when clicking glasses. So you can say salud, okay? It means literally health. So basically in Spanish, when we say cheers, in fact, we're wishing health.
Yes, that's right. Wishing good health with salud. The next phrase you will definitely need when eating at a table in a restaurant is to say, la cuenta, por favor. La cuenta, por favor. La cuenta is the check, the bill. And obviously, it's good to have good manners and say please. So, la cuenta, por favor. When you're asking for la cuenta, the bill, you might also get asked if you would like to add a propina, la propina. This is the word for a tip in Spanish. You might hear someone say, ¿Quieres añadir una propina? Would you like to add a tip to the paying of the bill? And you can reply with sí or no.
Muy bien, amigos. Now you have learned everything needed to listen again a second time to our mini conversación. This time around, look out for the new describing words we've taught you about food, the meals of the day, and common expressions used at the table. Comencemos.
¿Qué comes para la cena, Val?
Como una sopa de verduras. Está deliciosa. ¿Y tú?
Yo tengo tacos. Están picantes y muy ricos.
Buen provecho, Emi.
Gracias y salud.
¡Salud! Uf, estoy llena. La cuenta, por favor.
How did you go, friends, this second time around? Did you pick up some further words and expressions this time? If so, that's awesome.
In just 10 minutes, you've already leveled up your Spanish listening skills. Let's break everything down line by line so you can say with confidence you understood that whole conversation top to tail.
First, I asked, ¿Qué comes para la cena, Val? ¿Qué comes para la cena? This is the sentence we learnt early on, which says, what are you eating for this meal? I said specifically for dinner because it was nighttime. ¿Qué comes para la cena?
Exactamente. And I replied with, como una sopa. Está deliciosa. Breaking the sentence down, I said, como, like yo como, I am eating una sopa, a soup. And then I wanted to describe it, and I said, está deliciosa, which means it's delicious. And quick reminder here, como comes from the verb comer, and I conjugated with the first person, with me. So I said, yo como. And then I asked him, ¿y tú? And you?
So I said what I was eating. I said, yo tengo tacos. I have tacos. And I described the tacos. I said, están picantes y muy ricos. I said, they are quite spicy. I used the conjugation for they with the verb estar. Están picantes, because I'm talking about multiple tacos, not just está picante for one taco. I have multiple tacos, so I had to say están picantes y muy ricos. Again, the plural form of rico is ricos. I said they're very tasty.
And then we used some of our tabletop expressions we've taught you. I said, for example, buen provecho. I said to him, which, remember, means like enjoy your meal, bon appetit.
Yes, and we clinked our glasses together and said salud. We said cheers to good health.
The good health, yes. Once I had finished eating, I said, uf, estoy llena. Estoy llena means I'm full. Then I said, la cuenta, por favor, which means the check, please, to our waiter, to our camarero or camarera. I must have been really hungry to have eaten the food that fast.
You must have been. But how good, friends. You now understand that complete conversation and you're already going to start sounding like a natural Spanish speaker at the table. So before we do our lesson recap, we have a special Spanglish friend shout out of the day.
This week's shout out goes to Michelle, one of our regular listeners who commented on episode 23, where we discussed how to talk about the weather in Spanish. Very useful, practical, and essential episode. She told us what the weather was like in her city. She said, hoy hace sol. This means today it's sunny. That was perfect, Michelle. Muchísimas gracias for practicing with us.
Yes, and now, Spanglish friends, it's time for your reto, the challenge of today's episode.
We want you to write one short sentence in Spanish about food using the vocabulary we've learned today. It could be, for example, el almuerzo está rico, which means the lunch is delicious, is tasty. Or la cena está deliciosa, the dinner is delicious. Definitely with this, I'm getting so hungry.
Hunger warning again should have been given for this episode, but pop your answers, Spanglish friends, in the comment or share it with us through a DM on Instagram. We love seeing you put your new skills into practice, and who knows, you might even get a shout out in an upcoming episode.
Now let's quickly recap the 3 main things we learned today, friends, so it's cemented in your minds. Número 1. ¿Cuáles son las comidas del día? What are the meals of the day in Spanish? The meals are el desayuno, breakfast, el almuerzo, lunch, la cena, dinner, and la merienda, snack. Número 2. ¿Cómo podemos describir la comida? How we can describe food in Spanish. We practice saying, for example, está rico, it's tasty, or está delicioso, it's delicious, está picante, it's spicy. And we also learned está dulce, it's sweet. And last one, número 3. What expressions do we use at the table in Spanish? We covered everyday table phrases, very common used, like estoy lleno or estoy llena, which means I'm full. We also learned buen provecho, which means enjoy your meal, bon appetit. We also learned salud, salud, which means cheers. And last one, we learned la cuenta, por favor, which means the check, please.
Nice, Profe Val. And before we finish, spoiler alert, friends, next episode, episodio 26, we're going to teach you how to say what you like and what you don't like in Spanish. For example, you could say, no me gusta la comida muy picante. I don't really like spicy food. Or you could say, me encanta ir en bicicleta cada fin de semana. I love to go cycling every weekend. So we're going to share how do you say your likes and dislikes in Spanish.
This is amazing. It's going to be so useful. And well done again today, Spanglish friends. You are ready to sound natural at the table. Spanglish friends, don't forget your reto, and I'll see you next week.
Hasta luego, amigos.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for listening to Spanglish Friends. We are both so proud of the time you're investing to level up your Spanish listening and speaking skills.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, follow us and give the show a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Or even better, tell a friend about the show. It's how we can help even more people on their Spanish learning journeys and continue to grow our awesome, supportive community.
Don't forget to check out our socials, including Instagram and TikTok at Spanglish_friends for even more beginner Spanish fun.
Congratulations on taking another step today towards your Spanish learning goals. Ciao, Spanglish amigos. Until next time.
Hasta la próxima, amigos.